Hello everybody, this is David. Welcome back to my channel. In this video we're going to be looking at some aspects of the uniqueness of Christ, the uniqueness of Jesus Christ, and I'm happy to say that I have some guests to join me in this video, in actual fact some dear friends Philip and Catherine. So if you're ready, let's continue.
As Christians, we believe that Jesus Christ is the unique Son of God who came in human flesh. We believe that Christianity is unique among world religions. We believe that the uniqueness of Christ is the centerpiece of Christianity. What we know about Christ is based on the eyewitness account in the New Testament that have been proved and preserved for us to be authentic. The New Testament records, especially the Gospels, is one of the most reliable documents from the ancient world.
Jesus Christ was unique in that he alone, of anyone who ever lived, was both God and man. The New Testament teaches the full deity and humanity of Christ. The Nicene Creed of AD 325 confirms accepted belief, usually held by Christians, that Christ was fully God and fully man in one person. This claim makes him fully unique above all other religious people and leaders who ever lived.
The first aspect we're going to be looking at are the unique messianic prophecies regarding Jesus Christ. You know, Jesus lived a miracle-filled and supernaturally empowered life from his conception to his ascension. Now, these were all foretold centuries before his birth by supernatural prophecy in the Old Testament. The Old Testament, which was in existence centuries before Christ lived, predicted where he was to be born, as we read in Micah chapter 5 verse 2, when he was to be born, as we read in the book of Daniel chapter 9 verse 26, and how he was to be born, as we read in the book of Isaiah chapter 7 verse 14, which speaks of the virgin birth. Christ's entry into the world was by the virgin birth, that he would be born of a woman, as we read in Genesis chapter 3 verse 15. The woman from the line of Adam's son Seth, as we read in the book of Genesis chapter 4 verse 26, through Noah's son Shem, as we read in Genesis chapter 9 verses 26 and 27, and of the line of Abraham, as we read in the book of Genesis chapter 12 verse 3. We also read that he would come through the tribe of Judah, as we read in the book of Genesis chapter 49 verse 10, and would be the son of David, as we read in the book of 2 Samuel chapter 7 verse 12. Now, the Old Testament also predicted that Christ would die for our sins, as we read in Psalm 22, and would rise from the dead, as we read in Psalm chapter 2 verse 7. And all of these supernatural prophecies were uniquely fulfilled in Jesus Christ. There is no one else in history, no other religious leader or great figure in history who has ever lived can we ever say anything about that's true. No other person in history had their life written about before they were born. It's only Jesus Christ.
Christ is unique in his conception. Christ was not only supernaturally anticipated, he was also miraculously conceived. While announcing his conception, Matthew chapter 1 and verse 22 points to the prophecy of Isaiah in chapter 7 verse 14. Luke, a physician, records his miraculous inception of life in Luke chapter 1 and verse 26. And Paul alludes to this unique inception to life in Galatians chapter 4, verse 4. Of all human conceptions, Jesus stands out unique and miraculous.
Let's now move on and look at the unique supernatural features of Christ in his life. Jesus performed his first miracle in Cana of Galilee, as recorded in John chapter 2, and continued to perform many other miracles which could not be explained on supernatural grounds. They were unique in that they were immediate, always successful, had no known relapses. He healed illnesses that were incurable by medicine. Case in point, the blind man in John chapter 9. He raised several people from the dead, including Lazarus, whose body was already to the point of rotting, as found in John 11:39. Jesus turned water into wine, John 2:7. He walked on the water, Matthew 14:25. He multiplied bread, John 6:11. He opened the eyes of the blind, John 9:7. He made the lame to walk, Mark 2:3. He cast out demons, Mark 3:10, and healed all kinds of sicknesses. Jesus' teaching was unique. The substance of what he taught finds its root in the Old Testament, as he himself declared in Matthew 5:17-18. He condemned meaningless traditions and misinterpretation of the Old Testament, as recorded in Matthew 5:21 and Matthew 15:3-4. Though the essence of what he taught was not new, the form and the manner in which he taught was unique. The Sermon on the Mount employs a fresh teaching method. The vivid parables, such as the Good Samaritan in Luke 10, the prodigal son in Luke 15, the lost sheep in Luke 15, verse 4 continuing, are masterpieces of communication. Parables stand at the heart of Jesus' teaching style. By drawing on the lifestyles of the people to illustrate the truths he wished to convey, Jesus communicated truth and refuted error. Also, by speaking in parables, he could avoid casting pearls before the swine, so to speak. He could confound and confuse those who did not wish to believe, the outsiders, yet illuminate those who did desire to believe, the insiders.
Another thing that makes Jesus unique is his sinlessness. Some of Jesus' enemies brought false accusation against him, but the verdict of Pilate at his trial has been the verdict of history. He said, "I find no basis for a charge against him." A soldier at the cross agreed, saying, "Surely this man is a righteous man." And next to Jesus was a thief on the cross who said, "This man has done nothing wrong," in Luke 23:24. For a description of what those close to Jesus thought of his character, Hebrews says that he was tempted as a man, yet without sinning, as found in Hebrews chapter 4 and verse 15. Jesus himself once challenged his accusers by saying, "Which of you convicts me of sin?" John 8 chapter 46. But no one was able to find him guilty of anything. This being the case, the impeccable character of Jesus gives a double testimony to the truth of his claim. Jesus' sinlessness was unique and miraculous.
He was unique in his death. You know, the events surrounding Jesus Christ's death were miraculous. This included the darkness from midday to 3 p.m., as we read in the book of Mark chapter 15 verse 33, and the earthquake that opened the tombs and rent the temple veil in two from top to bottom, as we read in Matthew chapter 27 verses 51 to 54. Now, the manner or the way in which he suffered the excruciating torture of crucifixion was miraculous. The attitude he maintained towards his mockers and his executioners was miraculous, where he said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing," as we read in the book of Luke chapter 23 verses 34. Now, the way in which he actually died was miraculous also, as Jesus said in the book of John chapter 10 verse 18, "I lay down my life only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord." Now, at the very moment of his passing, he was not overcome by death. Rather, he voluntarily dismissed his spirit, as we read in John chapter 19 verse 30. Jesus said, "It is finished." And with that, he bowed down his head and gave up his spirit.
Jesus' uniqueness comes to us by considering his resurrection. The crowning miracle of Jesus' earthly ministry and mission was his resurrection. It was not only predicted in the Old Testament, as found in Psalms chapter 2 and 16, but Jesus himself predicted it from the very beginning of his mission. He said, "Destroy this temple, and I'll build it in 3 days." But the temple he had spoken of was his own body. John chapter 2 and verse 19. Jesus demonstrated the reality of his resurrection in 12 appearances over 40 days to more than 500 people.
Jesus was unique in that he ascended into heaven. Just like his entrance into this world, Jesus' departure was also miraculous. After commissioning his disciples, he was taken up before their very eyes, and a cloud hid him from their sight. They were looking intently up into the sky as he was going, when suddenly 2 men dressed in white stood beside them, as we read in Acts 1 verse 10. Contrary to the view of some, this was not a parable, but a literal bodily ascension into heaven, from which he will return in the same literal body to reign in this world. The great Christian creed clearly emphasizes the miraculous bodily ascension of Christ.
What then can we say in conclusion? What we can say is this, is that Jesus Christ is absolutely unique among anyone who has ever lived. He is unique in his supernatural nature, in his impeccable character, and in his life and teaching. No other world teachers ever claimed to be God. Even when the followers of some prophet deified their teacher, there is no proof given, no similar proof given as was given for Jesus Christ. There's no other claim that can be compared to the fulfillment of prophecy, the sinless and miraculous life of Jesus Christ and the resurrection. He is the only one. No religious or philosophical leader has ever displayed the love for people that Jesus did in dying for the sins of the world, as we read in John chapter 15 verse 13. Jesus Christ is absolutely unique among all human beings who ever lived. We can trust him. We can trust him for our salvation from sin, because there is no other one like him who's ever lived in history. If you're not a believer, you can trust in Jesus Christ today, because he is the true Son of God. He demonstrated it, he said it, and he proved it in his resurrection. If you are a believer, if you are a Christian today, be encouraged, because there is no other God like Jesus. No one else in history has ever done what he has done. So be encouraged if you're a believer. So I want to thank you for joining us, my friends Philip and Catherine, and myself in this video. We do want you to be encouraged. We do hope you've been blessed as we've looked at these unique aspects of Jesus Christ. Thank you, and see you on the next video. Bye-bye.